Hi there, and welcome to the Crowdfunder weekly webinar. Welcome along, and we are going to start quite quickly today. So I'm Jess, I'm the Brand Communications Manager for Crowdfunder, and this is Si.
Hello.
So Si's one of our head coaches here at Crowdfunder. So without further ado, today I'm going to take you straight into a presentation. We're going to go through some slides, and then we'll get to a really good question and answer session, which gets a bit juicy. So bear with me a second, and I will share my screen with you. Okay, full screen. Here we go. Right, now, actually, that's a little bit, we've gone a little bit early there, but we should be, hopefully everybody can see that. So we're going to start with how to turn your great ideas into a reality. So, tell us a little bit about the different types of crowdfunding.
So crowdfunding at a very high level is all about raising money for something. There's four main types of crowdfunding. The first is equity, then you've got lending, community shares and rewards. So I'll take you through the differences just very quickly. With equity crowdfunding, in return for a financial pledge, the backer receives a chunk of your business. It's like Dragon's Den style. In lending crowdfunding, also known as debt crowdfunding or peer-to-peer crowdfunding, in return for a financial pledge, your backer will receive an interest repayment. So it's very similar to going to the bank for a loan, but instead of one financial institution, you have hundreds of people who are all lending you money. Community shares is the third type of crowdfunding. That's sort of a mixture between equity and rewards based, where in return for a financial pledge, your backer will receive a stake in a community asset. That could be something like a football club. It could be a community-owned pub or a field full of solar panels as part of a community energy company. The fourth and final is rewards-based crowdfunding. That is what Crowdfunder specializes in. That's what our platform does best. In rewards-based crowdfunding, in return for a financial pledge, your backer will receive some sort of non-financial rewards. And that reward is usually a product or a service or an experience of some kind. It's a really good platform for launching startups. It's really good for community groups and really good for charities, much more so than the other three types of crowdfunding. So that's a quick overview. Jess, how does rewards-based crowdfunding work?
It's actually really simple. So on Crowdfunder, you create a project. So you go online, you click add a project, and it takes you through into the system. Once you've created that project, you then share your idea with the crowd. So everybody that sees your project page pledges on it, and then they get a reward. They get a reward in return for their pledge of cash on your project. Lots and lots of people see it, lots of people pledge on it, and then your idea gets funded. So now I'm going to take you through to the 6 steps of crowdfunding success. Si, can you just go through these first quickly?
Yeah, of course. So what I want to do is look at some live examples over the next few slides. We're going to talk about a range of these different steps to what makes a strong crowdfunding project. The first one is to have a strong team. Second, you need to really nail what your story is, who you are, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. Then we're going to look at projects that have found themselves a really good crowd, identified who that crowd is, who the audience is, and they've reached out to them to get funded. We're going to look at some reward examples, how you set a target, and how you market the project. So I think we've got the first example coming up, and that is the local food takeaway project.
I absolutely love this project. It's really exciting, and I think, Si, can you tell us a little bit about why this video is such a good video, why it's good, and also how you make a good video? And then it'd be really good to know they've got a really reasonable target there. They're looking to raise £6,000. So why is that a reasonable target, and how can everybody sort of look to set a really good target for their own different projects?
Yeah, sure. So hopefully we can possibly watch the video after we have a quick chat about what makes a good video. A video is your chance to make a first impression to whoever's looking at your project, and it's usually the first button that everyone will click when they visit your project page. So it's really important to have something there that's vibrant and passionate, and in a small amount of time can tell exactly all the information that that potential backer needs before they'll go ahead and support your project. A few key points with the video: keeping it short is best. So you're looking really for below or around 2 minutes for a crowdfunding video. In that time, you need to explain who it is that you are, what it is that you're trying to achieve, how you're going to achieve that, and where you're going to be spending the money. Those are the 4 key things that you need to get across. As for content in the video, it's really important that you get in front of the camera. Don't rely on image montages or panning shots of the venue where your project is going to take place. Make sure that you get in front of the camera. It's a very good way to create an emotional connection with that potential backer. And it helps everyone know that there's real people behind the project. So that's sort of a quick overview about the video. Jess, I think you asked about setting a good target as well, and how to do that. So in rewards-based crowdfunding, one of the main ways of raising money on Crowdfunder's platform is under the all or nothing fundraising model. And that's where you set a target and you need to hit that financial goal in order for all of the money to be released. It's therefore really important to make sure that the target you set is a realistic one. And so the local food takeaway project, these guys are live at the moment if you want to go and check them out on the website. But they're based in Bridport, and they need £6,000 to renovate the bus that you can see on the slide there. £6,000 is an important target for them because it's the minimum amount that they need to achieve what it is that they say they're going to do. And it's also quite a realistic one. The average project size on Crowdfunder is between £4,000 and £6,000. And in order to set a target which is realistic and is achievable, there's some simple math which I'll take you through quickly. The average person on Crowdfunder will pledge £50. So if you take a potential financial target that you need to raise and divide it by £50, it will give you on average the number of backers that you need to reach that target. So to raise £6,000, if we divide that by 50, we can tell that in order to hit the target, the local food takeaway project will need around 120 backers. So they've got 50 at the moment with 21 days to go. It looks like they're in a good position to reach the target. And actually, if we take the target that they have, the amount they've raised and the number of backers they've got, and divide those between each other, we can see that their average pledge is actually closer to £40. So it's a little bit lower than what we would expect. In that case, we need to hopefully drive some more backers to their project. So that's setting a target.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Si. What a great introduction into how to set a target.
So next on the example list is a project called Snack. So these guys aren't currently live. They crowdfunded with us last year. A really great project. One of the things that I remember liking about this project the most was the set of rewards that they put out on offer in return for a financial pledge. Jess, I know that you've spoken to the team at Snacks before. What can you tell us about how they ran the project and what rewards that they chose to offer?
So Alana and her crew are a really innovative bunch of what they call snacktivists. And this means that they've got a product which is fruit jerky. They buy old excess fruit that's going to be thrown out by supermarkets. They turn it into fruit jerky, and this is their business. And they needed to raise awareness and get some funds to expand what they were doing to reach more people. So these guys are quite lucky in the fact that they already have a product which makes a great reward, and they really lent on this when they ran their campaign. So they had lots and lots of different rewards, all at different price points. So they had £10 rewards, £20 rewards, £30 rewards, and you get different things at those stages. So somebody could come in and pledge for £10 and they might get or they did get, they would get bags of fruit jerky, which is the product themselves, and a shout out on social media from the crew. They also had a reward for £30, which is this really fun pants to poverty underwear. And I don't know about you guys, but I found that really fun, and that was something I pledged on, because now I wear my pants with pride, my snacked pants, so I feel like I'm a part of their business. They went right up to the top end of the scale. So with £500, they offered a meal for 2 people with the Snacktivist team, so with the people in the office, and a snacked box full of rewards, full of fruit jerky, different types, and tickets to a bespoke treasure hunt that they'd arranged as well. So you can see that those rewards weren't sort of extra to their project. They made them up, and they made them fit their project and their business. And that worked really well for them. And that's something that everybody can take into consideration. So if you're a charity group or a community group and you think, well, actually, I don't have a product to use as a reward, but you do, you have a community of businesses surrounding you in your area, go to them, see if they'll give you things that you can then use as rewards on your project. So get really creative with your rewards. It's one of the best things that Snacks did, and it's definitely one of the best things that you guys can do when you're in the setting up of your project phase. The other thing that Snack were really good at, there's a few of them behind the scenes. They've got some really good friends that helped out with their campaign. So what this means is that they had some people that were really good at creating stuff for their page, so like images or the video, really good at digital stuff, creating social shareables, so little things you can share on Facebook and Twitter. So that's really good. So when you're thinking about building your crowdfunding project, think about who can help you on the digital side. You also need someone on your team, on your crowdfunding team, that's really good at networking, somebody that's going to be good at marketing and getting the word out there and shouting about it, and also, you know, the person that's going to put the page together as well. So that's kind of a really good overview, using Snacked as an example of how to create great rewards and also how to build a great team behind your crowdfunding campaign. Next up, we've got Brixton Cycles, and these are really exciting. They're live right now, and one of the things that I really noticed when I look at this project is that they've nearly got 100 backers on their campaign. That's really important. So, Si, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about why it's important to have so many backers so early on. These guys have only been going for a week, and also, how do you get there? How do you get that many backers on your crowdfunding project?
Sure. So it's definitely worth mentioning that nearly 1,000 backers within 7 days of going live is very impressive, and that's not something that most projects can achieve overnight. I know for a fact that the guys at Brixton Cycles have been working on this for a number of months. I've had a chat with a few people about the sort of strategy that they employed and what they're doing now to continue the momentum. So I'll talk to you a little bit first about how you can replicate their success and how to launch in style with lots of backers, and how to use those backers to create more backers and really build momentum through your crowdfunding project. So before going live, there's one really important exercise to do, and that is to identify who your potential audience is. We call it a network map. It's really just a list of all of the different groups of people who you can reach out to and get in contact with. That might include for you best friends and family, people in the local community, any sports groups that you might be part of, local press. It could be industry related publications. Maybe you have an email database full of work colleagues. It could be LinkedIn contacts, Facebook friends, Twitter followers. All of these different audiences that could play a part in your crowdfunding campaign and being some of the backers on your project need to be identified before you go live. I like to draw lots of circles and put each audience group inside of different circles in my map, but you could do a spider diagram, you could do a tree diagram, whatever's easiest and most comfortable for you. What I would recommend doing is putting down a number against each of the audiences and just figuring out how many people you can potentially reach out to. So I've got a few hundred Facebook friends, I've got a few hundred Twitter followers. I know that I've got a few thousand people in my Gmail contact list. So I'm just with those 3 different audience segments, I'm building up a picture of how many people I could possibly get my project in front of. Once you have your network map done, that should really give you a good picture of what sort of target's going to be possible, as we touched on in a couple of examples earlier. And it should also give you a really good feel for, out of those people, who are the most engaged in your project, who are the most likely to pledge. So for me, my best friends, my family are going to pledge on my project no matter what. They're sort of what I'm going to call my core community. That might be your community group, or it could be the people who you work with. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's the people most centralized to your project and most likely to back. And they're the core group that we want to reach out to first when we launch the project. So after we've done the network map, we've figured out who are the most engaged group to tell our project, to talk to about our project. We then need to make sure that they know our project is coming and when it's coming. So maybe you choose to do an email, maybe you choose to give them a call, send them a text, whatever it might be. Make sure they know that on a specific date and a specific time, you're going to launch your project, and it's really important, and you'd really value their pledge as soon as it goes live. When it's time to go live, make sure you tell them, remind them. Do you remember that email I sent you last week? Well, now's the time that you need to come on and pledge. Make sure you send the link out. And what you're aiming for is within the first 24 hours to get up and around 10% of your target figure on the board, just from the core community, just from the core group that you think is most likely to pledge. As soon as you've got yourself up and over 0 and close to 10%, it's time to start engaging with the other audience groups which you've identified, the people who perhaps were less engaged and less likely to pledge initially, but once they see some other people backing your project and some real movement on it, they could be persuaded to pledge. And then it's really just a case of shouting about it as loud as you can. So you reach out to all of the different audience groups, you ask them to pledge, and once they've pledged, you ask them to share with their own networks. And that really builds momentum. And that's exactly what Brixton Cycles did to get to 955 backers and £40,000 pledged within 7 days of going live. Other ideas for reaching out to your audience and marketing, do a launch party. That always works really successfully. If you have a website, make sure you put your live project on your website. Posters and flyers, if you can get on local radio, that works quite well. Pick up the phone. I've run a project. I had to phone my mum 3 times before she would pledge, but she did pledge, and it made all the difference. There's lots of different ways you can do. Be creative, but make sure that you build momentum into it and reach out to your core community, the people most engaged with you and your project first. Okay, so to round off those 3 examples, Jess spoke a little bit about having the core team and having people who you can share the load with, and people who can bring different skills to your project. That's really important. Having a story and using that story through the medium of video is very powerful. Having a crowd and identifying the people who you can put the project out to is important for a number of reasons. Firstly, for the marketing plan, secondly, for creating a target, and also it's quite important for figuring out what rewards are going to be suitable for each of those different audience segments. Having rewards, just like Snapped, very important. That's one of the main reasons why people will pledge on your project, and it's one of the main differentiators of crowdfunding. It's why crowdfunding works really well. Setting an achievable target so that you make sure you hit it, and you make sure that you get the funds that you've worked so hard for into your bank account, and then shouting about the project.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Si, ever so much. So I guess now we've got to the point where I really want to remind everybody that it's actually about so much more than just raising money. Crowdfunding is really good for a real variety of things. So Si's mentioned quite a lot the power of marketing your project, but this doesn't just help you get the money in, it's letting loads and loads of people know what you're doing, what your idea is, what your ambitions are, and how you're going to achieve them. So loads of people will have their eyes on you and seeing your great idea and what you're going to achieve with that. Once you've got people backing and supporting your project, you've got validation from the crowd, and this is so important. So as you go into the future and your idea expands and grows and becomes something very, very important to your local community and to you, you'll always have that crowdfunder that says 100 people, 200 people supported my idea and they really wanted to make it happen. So you take those people with you because they validated you the whole way through. You obviously do get your funding out of it, and that is really important because that's how you're going to make your idea happen. And then all those people that supported you, all your validators, those people then go on to become advocates for the lifespan of your project. So for as long as you're going with your idea and making it happen, all these people, they're involved and they're a part of your community, and they really want to stick with you and see you become a success. So keep talking to your advocates as you go forward, because those people supported you in the early days and they'll be really important to you as you go forward. So that's the benefits to projects. What's next, Si?
If it was me, these are the next 4 steps that I would take towards running a crowdfunding project. First, I'd get a team together, make sure I've got people there who can be part of my project, and make sure I've got people there who are going to support the project. With that team, I'd make a plan. I'd consider the 6 steps of crowdfunding success. I would have a look at other projects that have been successful on Crowdfunder, and then I would have a go at making my own project. It's not an immediate thing. I would take my time, figure out what's working best, perhaps share it with some of my friends and get some feedback whilst I'm creating it. And then after I've done some pre-marketing and got my word out to my core group, my engaged group of friends and family or community that are going to be the first to back, I'd put it live and I would get my idea funded.
That's brilliant. Hopefully you're all feeling pretty excited and inspired to get your projects live and funding now. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook. If you just search for Crowdfunder, you can find us on Twitter, and we do love a bit of Twitter action at Crowdfunder UK. And of course, all the actions on the website, crowdfunder.co.uk. So that's the end of our slides for now. We're going to come back to you. Just 1 second whilst I get back on the screen so you can see Si and I again, hopefully. Hi, we're back. So I'm actually going to go and see if we've got some questions from some people. Bear with me 1 second and I shall be able to have a look. Right, here we go. So Steve has asked, this might be a really good one for you, Si.
Okay.
Steve's asked, I'm going to make a video for my funding page. I'm having a whiteboard cartoon which is his pitch. Is this okay rather than having just my face speaking to the camera all the way through, as Steve thinks that might be a little bit boring? The main character, the cartoon, will be a realistic cartoon of Steve himself with his voiceover. What do you think of that as an idea?
Okay, I've seen that being used before, and if you don't have any capacity for creating your own video, it is something that can be quite a cheap option that does work fairly well. I would say that it's important for you to get in front of the camera still, and perhaps if you go for the whiteboard option, rather than explaining what the project is, explain what your idea is using the whiteboard video, and top and tail it with you in front of the camera, even if it's just in front of your webcam or a smartphone, introducing yourself and introducing your idea. Let the whiteboard take people through the idea itself, and at the end have you saying what your call to action is, which is essentially, will you pledge on my project? It is important to get in front of the camera, absolutely.
And I repeat what Si says, you know, a lot of people with crowdfunding projects, that passion and the energy that exists between people pledging and people supporting, it's about people pledge on people. They love ideas, but actually, essentially, they're pledging and making it a reality. So that works really well for a video.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Mark. Hi, Mark. Nice to have you along. So Mark's crowdfunding to help save an ancient building. Is there any advice on, one, what I should do on my funding page and how to promote it? So this, an ancient building, I guess, is very community-led.
Yeah, possibly. It sounds like it could be potentially quite a big raise. Ancient buildings tend to cost quite a lot of money, so making sure that you do the identifying your network and building a network map exercise is really important. What you don't want to do is go live with a really big target and midway through realize that you actually don't have enough people to drive to the page to get anywhere near funding the project. So that would be really important. In terms of the page, you're following exactly the same rules as everybody else. Who you are, what it is that you're trying to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, and where you're going to be spending the money.
There's a really good example for you to look at, Mark. If you search Webster's Theatre on the Crowdfunder website, there's a project that raised, I don't think it's a whole building restore, but they've raised money to replace the windows, I think it was. I'm not entirely, can't quite remember. But also the Palace Theatre in Plymouth, again, I think it's another crowdfund to help restore an old building. So there's two for you to have a look at. So, okay, great. Thanks, Mark. So Maggie's opening a community cafe in Hull. Is this suitable for crowdfunding? Well, I'm going to say yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
There's lots of community. Is Baked Worthing, I think, is a really good example of a community cafe. There's a social enterprise in Worthing.
Down in the south. Yeah. Community cafes are great for a number of reasons. One is you've got very obvious rewards, and those rewards lead to people becoming your first customer base, because if you offer everyone teas and coffees and coming for events or coming to do classes that you might use the space for, before the cafe exists, by the time you launch, you've already got a few hundred people who you know are guaranteed to come in to collect their rewards and use the space and be part of your first customer base. It's also very, very good at engaging with the local community. Once you engage with that local community, it's going to increase the cafe's sustainability moving forward. So in terms of launching it, a community cafe and raising the initial funding via crowdfunding, it's a very smart choice.
And lots of people do it. Made in Hackney is another really successful community cafe. And actually, one of the things they said to us after they'd raised funds with us was it wasn't just about the money. They got a new trustee on board. They had new volunteers come on board. Loads of the community started treating the cafe as a different type of place to hang out. So it really did open a lot of doors for them, not just raising money. Hopefully that helps, Maggie. So Brittany is asking, is there any advice on the best payment options, and what do we pay a fee to subscribe? Sorry, I've lost that one. Hang on, I will.
So there's three ways. I'll start on the first part of the question. There's three ways that someone can pledge to your project on Crowdfunder. They each have their own what's called a payment gateway. I'll start with the one that's most recognizable. That's PayPal, which is one of the largest payment gateways in the world. In order for them to pledge to your project via PayPal, you need to have a PayPal account set up so that Crowdfunder, the system, we know where that money that's being pledged needs to go at the end of the project. The second way is with a payment gateway called Stripe. They're very similar to PayPal. They're a UK-based company. And putting Stripe as a payment option on your project allows people to pledge via debit or credit card, just as you would if you were to buy something online on an e-commerce shop. It'll ask you for the long number and the name and the little 3 digits on the back of the card. The third and final is with a one-off direct debit. That's with a payment gateway called Go Cardless. Again, British-based company. And what Go Cardless does is sets up a one-off direct debit that means if your project is successful at reaching its target by the end of the project, then a little trigger will go like that, and the person who's pledged the money will have the amount that they pledged come out of their bank account into your bank account directly. The best project offers all three, because then you're making sure that you cover any type of preference that a backer wants. You need to have at least one of those, but if you have two or one, it's not a problem.
Thanks, Si. That's really good advice on. And you covered the crowdfunder fee as well, which is also part of the question.
I didn't cover the crowdfunder fee. So providing that you're successful in reaching the financial amount that you want to reach, crowdfunder fee is 5% plus VAT. Conveniently, 20% of our 5% fee works out at exactly 1% of the target. So on average, you will net 94% of the money that's raised. Out of that, you will have to take fees for using the payment gateways. They differ between 0.5% and 2.1%, depending on which payment gateway you use. So that's PayPal, Stripe, and Go Cardless. If you head over to the help section on Crowdfunder, there's a page on fees, and that tells you everything that you need to know about what the fees are and how much each payment gateway will take as a fee for using their service.
Thanks, Si. There's another interesting question actually here from Ivan, and Ivan's asking, he says that there's no Stripe or cardless in Bulgaria, so the only option for them is PayPal. What would we advise in terms of broadening the payment option? I'm not sure how much we could do there.
We can't really broaden the payment option, but you are very lucky in the fact that PayPal is a household name, and almost everyone in the world understands what PayPal is, and most of them have PayPal accounts themselves. So if there was one that you would have, PayPal, it covers the most people. Unfortunately, because you're based in Bulgaria and we don't have the licenses set up with Stripe or Go Cardless, then you won't be able to use those as payment options on your project.
Okay, thanks, Si. So we've got another question here, and Kelton's asking, what should they include in their project description when building their crowdfunding project?
What should you include in your project description? It's the core pieces of information are the same in the video and the written description. It's who you are, what it is that you're trying to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, and where the money's being spent. In the written description, you can afford to go into a lot more detail than in the video. What I would recommend is using the space in the written description wisely, breaking up all the different sections that you want to write about with headings and subheadings, adding pictures in there, really spreading it out. What usually happens is a person will watch your video and go and pledge straight away. If for any reason they want to find out more information about your project, chances are they only need to find a little bit of the information rather than read through absolutely everything. In order to get them pledging as quickly as possible, you need to make it a very manageable piece of text for them to read. They'll skip down, they'll find the piece of information, usually just a small snippet that they're after. If they're happy with it, they'll go and pledge. If you present your written description as a huge block of text and you force them to read from the top to the bottom to find that little snippet of information that they were looking for, there's a good chance that whilst they're reading through all of that content, they might get distracted by Facebook notifications or someone calling them or something like that. And when they get distracted, they might leave the Crowdfunder page and then they might forget to pledge. That's not something that we want to happen.
It's great advice, Si. Also, Mark asked a question just a minute ago about whether it's really good to crowdfund for an old building in a community, and we said it's a really good idea. Mark's actually got back saying thanks for responding, which is great. But also, Mark's idea is that most of the capital fundraising will be through grants, but it's important that the community also play a part in helping this to happen. And I thought it'd be really good to explain how crowdfunding and grants and match funding works, because actually it's really important, especially for Mark.
Sure. So more and more projects are coming to crowdfunding to raise an amount of match funding that's being matched by a big organization. Is it Mark's case?
Yeah.
There's a very good chance that you might have funding through the Heritage Lottery, for instance. They give out hundreds of thousands of pounds, but they usually say that you need to raise between 10 and 25% of what they give you. And that's in order for them to mitigate some of the risk of them giving you all of that money by proving that there is a demand for the project that you've put forward to them. Crowdfunding is an exceptionally strong way of doing that. As Jess mentioned in the why you would crowdfund and the benefits of crowdfunding, one of the key reasons that you would do it is validation. If you can take a project to someone like the Heritage Lottery Fund or the Arts Council or Sport England or any funding body, trust or foundation, and say, I've raised 25 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, even 5,000 from X number of hundreds of backers, they've all given this project money out of their own back pocket because they really want to see it happen in their local community. It's a very strong case for you to receive that match funding in much larger sums and receive further funding from outside sources. So Mark, if you're considering using crowdfunding for a pot of money which you've been asked to match fund by another fundraising institution, then I would highly recommend using rewards-based crowdfunding to do that.
It works really well, and we know it works well because we recently ran a brilliant project, completely nothing to do with old buildings, but we ran a brilliant project with Creative England, and they had a pot of money, because a lot of what they do is give out grants in the creative arts. They had a pot of money and they needed to find women in game development. So for them, we launched Queen of Code, which was a search to find women who are making games, involved in game development, producers or designers. And we asked them to crowdfund to show that their ideas and their games were games that people wanted to see and wanted to see made into a reality. So they went out, reached out to their audience, crowdfunded their money, and then went back to Creative England, who then match funded them. So it is becoming such a brilliant way of putting match funded pots of money against crowdfunding projects, putting them together and really making that strong connection there to turn more money into more money and make bigger projects happen. So that's great. Mark, hopefully that was useful for you. Annabelle's asking, this is actually quite a good one, Si. I would love to do festival and party food catering, and would love to get a unique food van to go around, much like the local food takeaway by the looks of it.
Yeah.
I don't have a big network map. Is it suitable for a crowdfunding project, and how would I grow my network map?
That is a good question. And it's a smart realization to have now before you put too much work and effort into it. Because without people to back your project, it's unlikely that you're going to hit your target. Plus, you get all the extra benefits alongside that in terms of building a community and building a customer base around the food van. So how would you grow your network map if you don't have a big audience currently? First thing I would do is think about who would be interested in backing your project. What kind of person would be interested in backing your project? For a food truck, it's usually the local community who are most likely to pledge on your project, because they're the ones who are going to be using the food truck. If you intend to take it to festivals, then maybe it's a certain type of music lovers. If you want to do gourmet food, maybe you could think about ways to target foodies. Once you've got an idea of the type of person who would be interested and most likely to pledge on your project, you need to find the top places that you can reach out to those guys. So good ways to start, and things that I would do would be look for Twitter profiles of maybe associations or groups or key influencers, people who have lots of reach through Twitter and also Facebook, or really any social media. Look for any sort of association website, or one other thing that I would try and do is look for blogs. So if you take foodies, for instance, there's lots of people who will write about gourmet food, and they'll have a really big audience and network of their own. Once you've got a list of all of the possible people that you could reach out to who have audiences that might be interested in your project, you need to start getting in touch with them, letting them know about your project, letting them know what's coming, and see if you can get them to agree to post out your project and send out your project to their audience on your behalf. Then you can add those people and those audiences to your network map, add up all the numbers, see what you've got. And if you are getting to a position where you think you can reach the number of backers that you need, then you can start to look at launching your project. It's
a really good idea to sort of start building your network before you even get to the point of crowdfunding, which is what Size is all about. Also, another one actually, Annabelle, if you're looking at doing a food truck, I would look into the locations that are going to have your food truck there. So are there local estates that have open days? Are there local vintage steam rally fairs? You know, where are the places is your truck going to be? And go and talk to them. One of the things that people forget to do this day and age is just pick up the phone, introduce themselves and say what they're planning on doing. You don't know what's out there. You don't know, you could have an incredible response. It could be something really needed in your community. So pick up the phone, find out what it is that people want, and make sure that your project delivers that service to the people so that you know you're on the right track. So I think that's it for now. I'm going to, we've got a little treat for you. So earlier this year, we created a document called 95 Tips for Crowdfunders from Crowdfunders. You can download this on our website. So if you search for 95 Tips that actually snacked the project that we gave you a great example of earlier on. They did a little treat for us. Now I'm hoping this will work, but I'm wondering, I'm trying to get it so that we can screen share for you and play you this video, and we're going to say goodbye now. Righty-ho, bear with me. Here we go. So this is for you guys.
Oh yeah, my friend Alana has some tips for crowdsourcing your campaign, and here they are for you. Sung by me, number one. You gotta plan. You do. You really gotta plan. Don't underestimate it. Really don't underestimate it. You gotta plan. And number two, on this one, whatever you do, just put your pride aside and ask anyone you know for some help. That even includes those little friends you made in kindergarten too. You gotta ask everybody you know. Even that neighbor you didn't like growing up, you gotta ask them all for some help. To see what happens, cause you never know who will help you. Oh, and tip number 3, you got to have fun with it. Cause if you don't have fun, how will anyone else have fun or wanna have fun with you? Ooh. Oh, with you. Ooh. And number 4 is kind of related to 3. Whatever you do, don't make it about the money. Cause really this is all the labor of love. And once the people see you loving it, they'll want to love it too. And who knows who will love it? Maybe someone with some deep pockets. Those are my tips. Yeah.
Great, isn't it? Thanks. Okay, that's great. So everybody, thanks so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.